Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving Shorty, and it feels very appropriate to be doing this on a Saturday morning, because today we are reviewing Saturday Morning Adventures, Dungeons and Dragons. This is based on an old Saturday morning cartoon. And don't worry, we're going to basically just be talking about the comic book to begin with. We are going to get more into just what it means to be this to be a role-playing story later on, but if you're just concerned with if the comic book is good in and of itself, I'll get all that stuff out of the way first, and if you want to, you can leave early. It's Saturday. Go and enjoy your weekend. But we are going to be talking about role-playing later on. I'm a role-player myself, and I have some thoughts based on my experiences, which might be relevant if you are a gamer yourself. But to start with, let's talk about the comic book. Artwork-wise, for the most part, it does everything I wanted it to do. The characters look fantastic, exactly how I wanted them to. The colour palette is superb. It ranges from a quite nice dull palette when it needs to. In woodland scenes, it goes quite deep. When there's magic going on, also glows a little bit. The action and the magic both look fantastic. There is a dynamism to the fight scenes which work really effectively. It looks like this is an animated thing, which is exactly what you want it to. But big but on this one, for some strange reason, the artist has decided every once in a while, with some characters in some situations, to put massive thick white outlines around them. I'm not entirely sure why this was done. At first I thought it was because there is some genuinely creepy eldritch horror monsters they're fighting, and I thought, yes, this is kind of good, it shows that light dark kind of divide, but the artist just carries on doing it, seemingly at random. I've never figured out entirely what was going on. There's a point where some magical trickery happens, and the characters get into a different part of the story, and it appears like they've stopped. I thought, oh, okay, maybe this is them showing a change, but then turn to the back page, and no, it's back, and it just annoyed me by the end of the comic book. Writing, though, was actually pretty damn good. These characters are fairly simple. Dungeons & Dragons is a class-based system, so generally if you're playing a barbarian, you would act like a barbarian. You don't need to get into too much detail on that kind of thing, but these are people from the real world playing in a fantasy game, so you have a little bit of a rundown, like a nice double-page spread, with each character gets a little box out text on their powers and weaknesses, and that adds a little bit to their characterization. Not much, but I think the assumption is that if you're picking this up, you probably watched the cartoon. The actual story itself is fairly simple. The Dungeon Master turns up and is enigmatic. There are monsters to fight, and then a magical thing happens, and then we get to the ending. Nothing really out of the ordinary, but again, this is just a setup issue, so it's absolutely fine to do it. Now we're going to talk about role-playing. Thanks for sticking around. So yes, as I said, I'm a role-player. I've been since I was 17 years old. I'm the president of my gaming society. I GM a Wild West game every Tuesday, and I basically engage with role-playing a lot. So I had some thoughts on this one, and I was genuinely tempted when I knew this was coming out to go back and try and jump on YouTube or something and watch some of the old episodes. I never have done. I've gone back and watched all Transformers cartoons, and Mask, and He-Man, and Thundercats. None of them really stood up to scrutiny after many, many years. They all looked like I'd be embarrassed if I knew a kid who was watching them now. They weren't that great. But I never went back to Dungeons & Dragons because I am a role player. I don't play with He-Man toys anymore. I don't get into Transformers stuff that much, but I still turn up and roleplay. Not Dungeons & Dragons, but I don't think I would have been into it in a way if this hadn't been in my consciousness. So it was kind of nice just to go into it without really expecting much, but what I was hoping was they would actually change some stuff, because as I mentioned, the characters are pretty thin. They have very, very basic personalities, which tied into the class and the abilities they have in the world that they go into. And one of the first things they do to change it is, as I said, they have a weird eldritch kind of feel to the monster attack, which is nice, a lot darker than I expected. But we also have the point very early on where the aim of the entire cartoon is them to get back home. They were on a Dungeons & Dragons roller coaster, if I remember correctly, and they're trying to find a portal to go back through that. Now, I've read the Die comic book, and I'm waiting for the RPG to arrive soon, and I like the fact that there's always riffing on this, but in this comic book, at this point, one of the background characters, or well, lesser known front characters, actually turns around to the tall blonde jock, who we kind of assume was de facto leader because he's tall, blonde, and jockey, and says, no, let's actually engage with the world. Let's stop thinking that the only thing to do is get out of here. This is not the nightmare hellscape we're in. Let's engage with it. And I like that. I've been in a game when I've had a player character in the group that I've been in as a player who took on a leadership role, who wrote into his character background that he had a wife at home who was pregnant, was about to give birth, and halfway through the very first adventure he wanted to turn around and go home and took us all with him in the tank. And it was massively disappointing, and I generally don't like the idea of characters that won't engage with the world. It's a very frustrating thing as a DM and as a player in a group of other players doing that. They totally give this a run for its money and actually have people engaging with it and giving their reasons why they would do it. This shows just growth straight away, and that they're going to move hopefully beyond their one-dimensional aspect, including the fact that one of the people who steps forward and takes a bit more leadership role is one you wouldn't expect based on their characteristics. Add to that as well that they end up in Waterdeep, which is a very famous city in the Forgotten Realms, and it means we're getting a different type of game, one where you have to engage more with the world because you're not just fighting monsters in dungeons, you are talking to real people, well, fictional people, people with personalities. The DM will be usually playing them, and it means far more levels of engagement. And this shows that they are building on what we've had before in the cartoon and taking it to a different level in this comic book. I hope I'm going to enjoy the rest of it as it comes out. I'm certainly going to carry on reading it. I hope the art doesn't carry on annoying me. That's it for me for this weekend, though. I'll be back next week. I might even do a bonus one later on because there's still a couple of things I want to read. But until I see you all again, look after each other, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.